Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Sections of Premier Plaza and halfway through St. Andrew on fire. 2 guns and more than 100 rounds of ammunition seized in Montego Bay. And later in sports, world record on watch in 200-meter women's finals. I'm Anthony Lugg. Here are the details. Up first this afternoon, the Premier Plaza in halfway through St. Andrew is now on fire. It's understood that the fire started some minutes after 11 o'clock. Our reporter Kirk Wright is on location and joins us live. Kirk?
Thank you very much, Anthony. That you hear is a truck going, a fire unit going to refill. I'm at Premier Plaza and I'm looking at Essential Lens, I'm looking at Premier Optical, and I'm also looking at Chambers, Hillary, and Assorted. And on top of that building is some establishment. We're not sure what it is, but we have with us Emilio Banks with the fire department who will tell us a little bit more as to what's really happening. Emilio, what can you tell us so far?
Well, what we have at this moment is on the roof of Essential Solar, we have a fire that is presently going. The information we have right now, we have 5 units on location. Well, 6. Another unit just came in around the back. They are also on location, and we are right now trying to contain the situation to ensure that it doesn't spread beyond, because the information I have is that most of the solar panels are stored on the top. Below that section is where they have the batteries, and that is where we don't want to have the fire spread to. So right now, the aim is to contain and then get the situation under control. And so far, we seem to have it, as you can see, contained to the roof section, and we are going to make sure that it doesn't spread beyond there.
So we can safely say that the fire started from where the solar panels are?
I don't want to say that yet because the investigations will prove where it started from, but as it is right now, that is where the location of the fire is.
Can you say if anybody was injured?
We haven't gotten any reports of any injuries or deaths, and we intend to keep it that way.
In terms of challenges, did you have any fighting fire?
No challenges whatsoever. Water, as you can see, we have a water tender here that is still full. We have hydrants on this side of the property. We have hydrants on the other side of the property. The only challenge really is the wind, and we have no control over that. As you can see, the wind is shifting from time to time. So what we've done is we've surrounded the property. So we have 1 unit around to the left here. We have 2 to the front here. We have 1 unit around the back there, and we have another unit to the side here. So we've surrounded the property, and we're fighting it from all angles.
Thank you very much, Emilio Banks. Anthony, we also have a gentleman who works nearby, and he said he was here nearby when the fire started. So remind us of your name.
I'm Warren, a technician with Dr. Lee for a bunch of years. I was inside the technician here while I sterilized machine, and then I hear that fire. I mean, when I know that so rapidly, where I shout and run out and see the disaster. I mean, that even though my machine is still there with things in it and sterilization, might have to dump. I mean, after shutting out, I never know that the fire was like this. Even the tops try to be like, let's execute the situation.
About what time the fire started?
I would say like up till 7 to 11 or after 12. And that was the going what have to leave the machine still. And I mean, that's scared.
Clearly, you're still shaking, sir. Thank you very much for talking to us, Anthony. So at the moment, the fire department, they're here, and they're trying to fight the blaze very vigorously. Everybody have stopped work essentially and just milling around looking to see what's happening. Anthony?
Thank you very much. Our reporter Kirk right there on location at the Premier Plaza in halfway through St. Andrew. And we go now to other news. The St. Mary Health Department is reporting that it has discovered the Anopheles mosquito, which is a carrier of malaria at 1 mosquito breeding site in the parish. It's why it has now placed several communities across St. Mary on high alert for mosquito-borne diseases. Sandy Williams has more.
More than 20 communities in St. Mary have been identified as high risk for mosquito-borne diseases. That's according to Chief Health Inspector for St. Mary, Rupert Stevens. Mr. Stevens made the announcement while addressing the St. Mary Municipal Corporation meeting recently.
A total of 43 communities were surveyed by the temporary vector workers, of which 29 were high-risk communities for Aedes aegypti breeding. So we have 30 communities which are high risk, and 29 have been completely surveyed in the month of June, Mr. Chairman.
He says the health department has strengthened its mosquito control program with the recruitment of 30 temporary workers. The workers are tasked with undertaking search and destroy operations in communities across the parish.
A combined total of 12,459 premises were inspected by both the temporary and the permanent vector workers. 1,356 premises were identified as positive for mosquito breeding.
Mr. Stevens adds that 16 potential Anopheles mosquito breeding sites were surveyed. However, only one confirmed the presence of the malaria carrier.
And this was in the Cricket River area of Indianoto Bay Division. So we did some treatments to that site. We are not endemic to malaria at this time, but we are always at risk of imported cases, so we have to monitor the drains and the ponds, which are the primary areas where this mosquito will breed and proliferate.
Sandy Williams, TVJ News.
There was a major gun and ammunition find in St. James yesterday following the killing of a man on the Rose Hall main road in the parish. It's reported that shortly after the killing, the police launched an operation where more than 100 rounds of assorted ammunition, a multi-caliber rifle, and a 9mm pistol were seized. Reports are that about 2:37 Wednesday evening, the victim, Andre Terrence Young, otherwise called Screamus, was traveling towards Montego Bay. Upon reaching the vicinity of the Hilton Resort and Spa Hotel, a black Mercedes-Benz drove up beside him. The police said the occupants opened fire on Young. He was hit several times. The Mercedes then made a U-turn and escaped in the direction of Falmouth. The victim was transported to hospital but was later pronounced dead. TVJ News understands that minutes later, intelligence led the police to a house where the guns and ammunition were found. And 3 men accused of carrying out an armed robbery in St. Elizabeth last year have been captured by the police. An illegal gun and 15 rounds of ammunition were seized from the suspects, who are said to be from Clarendon. Head of the St. Elizabeth Police Superintendent Dwight Daly told our news team that the men were held shortly after carrying out the robbery.
About 10 p.m. last night, gunmen held up and robbed the patrons at a bar at Mountainside District in the parish of St. Elizabeth. They then made good their escape in a white Axio motor car. The police were alerted and they quickly responded. They spotted the car and intercepted it. In the car, they found 3 men, all of Clarendon addresses. The car was searched and a 9mm Taurus pistol loaded with 15 9mm cartridges were found. The men were arrested and the firearm seized. The items that were stolen were recovered.
And it's time now for a break, but stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to Midday News and thanks for staying with us. Reactions this afternoon to the daring gun battle between 2 licensed firearm holders in Shamsharp Square, Montego Bay, St. James on Tuesday. As you'll hear in this report from Shane Masters, the St. James police have started to question the 2 men.
It was like a scene from a movie. The daring gun battle in the busy Shamsharp Square, Montego Bay on Tuesday. Persons were sent scampering for cover as 2 licensed firearm holders traded bullets. It's believed the incident is a case of road rage. Security consultant Robert Finzi-Smith took issue with the actions of the men.
They have totally demonstrated a lack of ability to be held responsible in keeping their weapons.
CEO of Mackay Security Company, Dr. Jason Mackay, sees things differently.
I don't think we have enough data to come to instances where, on the outset of it, just what I've seen so far, it appears to be disgraceful behavior by 2 firearm license holders. But I mean, I don't like any case to be judged from a single video. I think Every case needs to be investigated. I don't think while investigation is going on, either of the men should have their firearms during that period of time.
Both men shot each other. However, one remains hospitalized. Head of the Area 1 Headquarters, Assistant Commissioner Clifford Chambers, told our news center that charges will be laid in the case, which has sparked public outrage.
The incident is now the subject of an active police investigation, and therefore not much more can be shared at this time. It must, however, be noted that the incident resulted from a motor vehicle accident in the vicinity of the Sam Shop Square, and it is not a wanton act of criminality by gangsters. As mentioned, both persons are now with detectives being interviewed, and there is the clearest indication yet that charges will be preferred soonest.
Meanwhile, the Firearm Licensing Authority is also conducting a probe into the incident. In the meantime, Mr. Finzer Smith says the incident could result in the FLA becoming more stringent in its approval process, and this could result in fewer gun permits being issued. O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
The parliamentary opposition is urging the government to reduce the import duty on electric vehicles older than 3 years. Opposition spokesman on energy Philip Paulwell raised the issue in Parliament on Tuesday amidst a policy for Jamaica to transition to using clean energy to power vehicles. Andrea Chisholm has the details.
Most vehicles in Jamaica should be electric. Well, that's the plan. As announced in his budget presentation, Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark told Parliament that the government would
reduce the import duty on electric vehicles from 30% to 10% and to eliminate fees on license fees on electric vehicles over the next 5 years. The lower duty rates and the elimination of the license fees requirement will apply to electric vehicles that are 3 years old or less.
Dr. Clark insists that the technology in electric vehicles is rapidly changing and Jamaica has to be up to date. For Philip Paulwell, the 3-year limit may prevent ordinary Jamaicans from owning electric vehicles which are expensive.
A 2020 Tesla S goes for $30 million if you want to buy it today. 85% of the vehicles that are coming to Jamaica now are used vehicles between 4 and 6 years. There's no way you're going to get the amount of vehicles you wish by 2030 by not extending or by limiting the incentives to 3 years. Those vehicles are still too expensive.
There's a BYD vehicle, E3, that costs the equivalent, using approximately $150 as exchange rate, approximately 2.2 million Jamaican dollars. There's a BYD 1 Pro that costs $1.8 million.
Flash Motors and the Stewart's Automotive Group recently showcased Chinese electric vehicles called BYD. After applying the concession, 2 vehicles were priced at roughly $9 million and $12 million. In the meantime, Jamaica will be developing the infrastructure to ensure motorists are able to charge their vehicles in a timely manner. Andrea Chisholm, TVJ News.
And it's time now for the Business Minute. Here's Cody and Barrett.
In the world of business, the makers of Appleton Estate Rums this week auctioned a bottle of the premium blend containing spirits as old as 60 years old for $16,000 at an event in Kingston. At the event, rum maker J. Ray and Nephew Limited (JWN) launched Decades, a blend of rum from each decade of 6 decades of Jamaica's independence. The Jamaica's Tourism Ministry announced that it will acquire dozens of bottles of the aged rums for its overseas gift giving. The product retails for $1,700 per 750 milliliter bottle. Neither the Tourism Ministry nor Jerry and Nephew disclosed the price to be paid for the government's planned overseas corporate giveaways, but it is believed that they will be purchased at the going retail price for the product. This would involve an expenditure of more than $100,000 for the planned acquisition of the prized spirits. And in business internationally, after enjoying a long reign as the king of streaming, Netflix faces a tough fight to keep its crown. It lost almost 1 million subscribers between April and July as more people decided to quit the service. The streaming giant has now lost members for 2 quarters in a row, but the drop was smaller than it feared. With the Business Minute, I'm Cody Ann Barrett.
Time now for a look at the top regional and international stories.
Region. The Organization of American States, OAS, and the United States government on Wednesday agreed to create a panel of expert auditors to support transparency and accountability in public procurement and health spending in Latin American and Caribbean countries. During a ceremony held at OAS headquarters, Secretary General Louis Almagro said the hemisphere needs to create new regional and national approaches to prevent, mitigate, and manage potential future health demands. Almagro says this agreement is a very valuable step on common path that can ensure the strengthening of our region's health systems, and it is also a concrete opportunity for member states to strengthen their democratic governance. On the international scene, Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi submitted his resignation to President Sergio Mattarella today, plunging the European Union's third largest economy into fresh political turmoil. Draghi's resignation comes after several key parties in his coalition, the powerful Five Star Movement, the largest party in the country's coalition government, center-right Forza Italia, and the far-right League boycotted a confidence vote in the government yesterday. Now, Italy's President Sergio Mattarella will meet with the speakers of parliament, with the next step being a call for a snap election, which is likely to take place as early as this fall. And those were the top regional and international stories. I'm Sandy Williams.
Thank you, Sandy. And we head now to a quick break. When we return, we'll have your midday sports report. Renardo Brown is standing by.